I want those sexy capped shoulders like Sarah Connor. That's what I want. Hello, zombies. Today is a very exciting day. Hello, Mikey from the future here, but also the past technically, so that's kind of confusing. As you can see, I did record on the day of the shoot, but I decided to reshoot because the audio was abominable. I have a mic now. And the fridge was haunted. And then I tried to up it by... And Ripley was on a rampage. That is Ripley. My updated fitness routine is kind of like a general of everything I do. But today, I will girl, come on. Honey, could you cool it? You want to fight right now? Love her, but she's psychotic. But in any case, I drove all the way to Joshua Tree to do the cosplay of my dreams, a cosplay that is less about the clothes I wore or the makeup I did, and more about something I had been working for years. If you don't know, you must be new here, because for years, I have not shut up about Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor is a character from the Terminator franchise, and from the moment I first laid eyes on her, I wanted to be her, not for her cool clothes, not for her deadly accessories, but for those shoulders. I became a woman obsessed, and then I learned about her character, which made it even better, but more on that in a little bit. Look, ladies want a few things in life. Girls want the big glutes, they want the tiny waist and the abs. Yeah, those are nice, they're nice, don't get me wrong. I'm working towards those too. But ever since I was a wee lad, I have always wanted big, round, capped shoulders. Capped shoulders are entirely slept on, in my opinion. They're just... I've always wanted them. I always thought strong was sexy and beautiful, and that shoulders were the icing on the cake for that. I've never understood why women are afraid of having broad shoulders. I think that's awesome, because think about it. Round, capped shoulders are curves that anyone can build, if you work hard enough. It balances out wide hips so nicely, and you get that hourglass illusion. It's never looked manly to me, shoulders are just so hot. I digress. I'm probably blowing out the mic, sorry. I actually finally grew the capped shoulders of my dreams in a way that I think is realistic and sustainable. We'll talk about that in a bit too. And I never celebrated it. I've had shoulders like this since 2022. You gotta celebrate the wins, big or small. And these wins are pretty big. So sorry. I have become a bit of a bro anyway. So I thought, what better way than to drive into the middle of the desert during a heat advisory with a bunch of weaponry and do a Sarah Connor cosplay and photo shoot. So in this video, I will show you how the real-life Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton, got the Sarah Connor shoulders. I will show you exactly how I got my Sarah Connor shoulders. I'll take you through a full shoulder workout, show you behind the scenes of our shoot, and talk about why Sarah Connor is so much more than just a pair of pretty delts to me. Why Sarah Connor is one of my favorite final girls. Yes, I did say final girl. She is not just a deltoid dream. No. She is not normally included in the lineup of final girls, but I will die on this hill. She's one of the best. We definitely think of Terminator as an action franchise, and in most regards, it definitely is. However, the first Terminator, even James Cameron said, was inspired by Halloween. The first Terminator is a horror. It's just got robots. And Sarah Connor perfectly fits the arc of a really good final girl. Therefore, I have proclaimed she has definitely won. Sarah Connor goes from a waitress who doesn't even know how to balance her checkbook to a woman who is told by a man from the future that she is going to save the entire world. No pressure. Then the fun is in watching how the hell she pulls that off. By the end of the first Terminator, she starts to rise to the occasion of her bigger purpose and her bigger calling, and she starts to embody the final girl mindset that you guys know I love so much. She goes from this kind of helpless, a word that even Linda Hamilton has used, unconfident, lost, average girl to this incredibly capable, self-assured, resourceful, clever, strong woman who does not take shit from anyone. I love her. I've heard it was actually Linda Hamilton's request that she not play a helpless waitress in T2, Terminator 2. So in many ways, Linda Hamilton herself has major final girl vibes. She also said that even though she had this physical transformation that hadn't really been seen before on a female character in film, she took careful measures to protect what she considered to be feminine elements of her character. And she said, you don't need to look look like a guy to be strong. Granted, what's feminine and masculine is very subjective and on a spectrum, but in terms of what the general public thinks about these categories, I really love that Linda pushed to blur the lines of what a strong woman should look like, that you could have this balance of both. It wasn't all or nothing, it wasn't black or white. And I think that Sarah Connor as a character balances her feminine and masculine energy beautifully. It is truly women like her, both Linda Hamilton and the character of Santa Connor? It is truly women like her that has inspired me to want a strong physique since I was a teenager. Back when it wasn't cool, by the way. Not to be that guy, but back when the only opinion of women with muscles I ever saw was that it was masculine and not attractive, and that didn't stop me from wanting it. Now I think the tides are turning because there's less stigma around women building muscle, which is good for a lot of reasons. We'll get into that. If you haven't seen Terminator 1 and 2, I highly recommend checking them out. By Terminator 2, she has morphed into this militant, tough badass that has been shaped by her experience with the killer of T1, and now she has to face the killer of T2. She's seen as crazy, she isn't believed, and she has to get really clever when the world is quite literally trying to keep her locked down. And she's still scared in T2 like she is in T1, but her unshakable belief in herself and that bigger mission that she has now makes her continually face her fears and get through the next hurdle. Final girl. Now let's bring this all together. How the final girl metaphor relates to working out. In a more clinical sense, final girls go through what is called post-traumatic growth, developing new personal strengths, finding new purpose, changing the way you look at life, increased resilience after a traumatic event. These are all things we see final girls go through. Similarly, building muscle is a lot like that. Sometimes with really hard training, you get micro tears in your muscles, a final girl's physical battle wounds, if you will. In the gym sense of things, the wounds, the micro tears, are not what lead directly to growth. But the act of challenging your muscles with a heavier demand than they are used to is what builds it back up stronger than it was before. In both the horrors of life and the gym, the challenge is the catalyst for growth. So every time you're in the gym, remember, this is final girl stuff. This is yet another reason why Sarah Connor is one of my favorites. She is the embodiment of resilience, not just physically, but also mentally. Life as the immortal killer. Some final girls face a mortal or fully defeatable killer, one that can be totally eliminated by the end of Act 3. But many final girls are not so lucky. Their killer is an immortal killer, an unstoppable force that can be temporarily subdued but never fully defeated. Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, Art, basically all the classics, because immortal killers are top-tier franchise material. Most of these killers are supernaturally immortal in a way, but even a killer like Ghostface fits the immortality bill because anyone who puts on the mask and persona is now a threat to the final girl's survival. Likewise, the killers in Terminator fit this model. They're not supernatural, but as highly advanced robotic killing machines, they don't fall victim to mortal limitations. They can withstand immense physical damage, self-repair, and Daddy Skynet is truly immortal because he can just replicate or resurrect whatever's lost. Sarah Connor is up against a relentless, unfeeling, tunnel-visioned death machine, and it's never going to end. Sounds dramatic, but fitness is the same way. You don't get to defeat the killer one time by reaching your desired physique, your ideal health, and then f***ing off for the rest of time. No, you don't. No, you don't. This is why you yo-yo diet. You think it's done once you get there. It's never done. Health and fitness is a franchise-level commitment. Your break between sequels is the end of your last workout and the beginning of your next workout. Your last cooked meal of mainly whole foods and your next one. Your Saturday night out between 2 solid nights of sleep. And unlike most final girls, you have to continually choose to be in the sequel, knowing in many ways it's gonna suck. Even when you grow muscle and get stronger, the workout's still gonna be hard. It never gets easier, you can just handle more. Even though you might have finally found whole foods meals that you love and look forward to, it is a conscious choice to keep choosing them over the highly processed, ultra convenient foods that are everywhere. Prioritizing sleep, drinking enough water when you could just be slamming Pepsis all day instead. Sorry, Pepsi. These are the everyday killers that you face off with in exchange for a life of health and longevity. Like a final girl in the Immortal Killers franchise, it's never going to end. But that's okay, because with a little willingness, you will be tough enough to keep facing those fears. You don't have to be perfect. A final girl gets knocked down all the time. Sometimes in order to survive, she'll have to retreat or hide for a little while, but eventually she'll show up with a knife, bear spray, the golf club, or the flamethrower in order to kick ass. And in the world of health, that just means showing up a majority of the time with your weapon of healthy habits. And one more final girl metaphor for you. The stakes always rise in a sequel. The killer has to be bigger, scarier, more threatening, somehow more immortal, harder to defeat than the last film. That's Hollywood, baby. It also happens to be a great metaphor for progressive overload. It is. You have to raise your own stakes to keep building that muscle of resilience, whether we're talking real muscles or mental muscles. But hey, you get a stronger final girl with every raised stake. All right, the meat and potatoes. I am boiling in the sun. I have to do something about that soon. So I've been getting asked a ton lately how I grew my shoulders specifically, which I love to hear because that means the bolder shoulders are starting to get the love and appreciation they deserve. So let me first talk about how Linda Hamilton actually did it, and then I'll talk about how I did it. How Linda Hamilton trained to get those shoulders, baby. Oh my God. Hold on. I gotta fix the sun. I'm gonna fix the sun. Did I fix it? Well, now it's dark. Shit. Can we live with this darkness? I think it's fine. Okay, this is not for the faint of heart, so I'm just gonna say it. Linda Hamilton started training 2 weeks after giving birth. And this wasn't no regular training. She reportedly trained 3 hours a day, 6 days a week at the peak of her training. She went through military, judo, and weapons training. She did weightlifting. She did cardio like running, bikes, stairs, and swimming. And apparently mini trampoline work. Hell yeah! A moment for rebounding. She was so ahead of her time. It's just jumping on a mini trampoline. That's an update from my updated fitness routine. I discovered trampolines. It's very fun. It's my favorite form of cardio. I just like to bounce now. Anyway, she reportedly started training 13 weeks before the start of filming, which is an incredibly short time for the kind of transformation she had. In short, she worked her ass off. I found in a 1991 interview she said that she shed 12 pounds on a non-fat diet that revolved around cereal with skim milk, chicken, and dry salads. Sounds lovely. I'm telling you how she did this, not so that you do it the way that she did. Based on some interviews I've seen, I don't think she would recommend that either. I'm telling you just so that you know that the level of extreme stuff she had to do to get into that shape for this role was extreme. Some more information I found out was that she was extremely dialed in on her nutrition, that prioritized high protein. I found something that said low fat and moderate carbs, but again, according to that interview, she said non-fat, which not sustainable, not healthy. You need healthy fats, especially as women, for hormone regulation and all kinds of bodily functions that keep you in good shape. Like, not good shape, like alive. So don't eat no fat. Let's not do the 90s thing. Also, moderate carbs is interesting because you need carbs to fuel a hard workout. And if she's only eating moderate carbs and she's working out 3 hours a day, 6 days a week, it must have been really hard. I understand that for a short-term goal, that was probably the fastest way to get there. But honestly, she probably felt like shit. She does mention that she didn't get a lot of sleep during this time. And you need sleep to also maintain good health. And honestly, you need a lot of sleep to maintain muscle mass over the long term. So again, signs that this was a temporary way to get to that physique and not the long-term way. Linda Hamilton called her training sheer hell, but she said that she did it because Sarah Connor would have done it. This is a problem for men that look at actors that train for Marvel movies too. The way that they get to those physiques is for a role. It's their job as an actor to put themselves through that if they want to. It is temporary. It is extreme. It is not recommended. But I'm here to tell you that if you like my shoulders, there is a more sustainable, healthy version of how to get there. I am not as cut as Linda Hamilton was in Terminator 2. That's okay. I'm still very happy with where I've gotten, naturally, healthily, sustainably, but it's something you should definitely keep in mind. Just remember, Sarah Connor had to save the world. You don't. You just gotta save your own. And that can be done a lot more reasonably. How I got my Sarah Connor shoulders. Truthfully, I do a lot of very similar things, but just in a way less extreme way, mixed with moderation and flexibility that keeps me sane. So if you haven't seen my updated fitness routine video from a few months ago, go check that out. But long story short, I got very sick at the end of 2020 and stayed sick for basically the next year, like really badly. I was extremely sedentary. I really couldn't move or do much. My nervous system was wildly out of whack and it affected me head to toe. I've actually talked about this in a few videos, but what you need to know is being sedentary for that long caused weight gain. I also was not eating well because when it all started, I actually had no appetite to eat. When I could finally get myself to eat, I didn't care how much I was eating because I just was happy that I was able to stomach food again. So I gained weight that way and I ended up around here. And then when I finally started to heal my nervous system, figure out what was going on, feel like I could maybe start doing more movement, I started with very, very basic physical therapy exercises, like truly moving certain muscles centimeters. And that was all I could do. And then using very, very light weights, very basic movements, very low impact, low intensity workouts. I worked my way up until I was functional and I felt kind of normal again. This was a long process, but I want to say it was somewhere between 9 months to a year. I had lost all of the weight that I put on from that time of being sick, and I ended up right around here. That was also the very first time I really got my Sarah Connor shoulders. That's the first thing you should know. This was not an overnight thing. This was not a do a couple workouts and 2 months from now you get the big shoulders. It took me about a year, not just to grow them, but to reveal them, because as I'm going to talk about, that toned lean look is a two-part thing. It is growing the muscle and it is also uncovering it. And then I've maintained those results, give or take a few pounds, when I got sick again last fall. And I maintained those shoulders since 2022. So the fact that it's taken me this long to celebrate with a shoot is just crazy. But anyway, something that I think is really, really important for me to hammer home to anyone who's watching this video, because you want boulder shoulders too, is that you should not be afraid to grow muscle. As women, I feel like we have been taught that growing muscle is masculine, that you're gonna get bulky if you lift a 5-pound weight. No, it's not gonna happen. I have been trying to grow muscle, and it's hard, and it takes a long time and a lot of effort and intentional training. Unless you're roided up or you've got crazy genetics, which you probably don't have because it's very rare, you're not gonna accidentally end up bulky. I promise you, you're just not. It's not gonna happen. Something that I find so unfortunate is that women are kind of made to be afraid of weightlifting and building muscle, but they also typically want a lot of physiques that 1000% are grown by weight training and building muscle. We are taught that if you eat as little as possible and you do a ton of cardio, you're gonna look the way that you think you wanna look, but that's actually not how a lot of the bodies that have been propped up are made. It's really not. It's like a weird industry encouraging self-torture with absolutely no end goal. This is why the fitness industry is incredibly lucrative, because all you have to do is confuse people into doing things that don't actually help their body long term, and you have a forever customer. I digress. I got into that a little bit in my other video. I'm not gonna do it here after she does it. So I'm just gonna stress it again. Please don't be afraid of building muscle. Building muscle is one of the best things you can do for your body long term. It is one of the best indicators of health and longevity as you age, and it helps prevent so many of the most common diseases. To have good nutrition, to maintain muscle mass. It's the shittiest lie we've ever been sold that weightlifting for women makes you bulky or manly. No, strong is sexy. Strong is very feminine. I'll die on this hill too. Anyway, let's talk about shoulders before I get any more heated. There are 3 muscles that make up the very, very sexy deltoids. We got the front delt, also known as the anterior delt. We got the side delt, also known as the lateral delt. And we got the rear delt, also known as the posterior delt. In order to grow big, sexy boulder shoulders, you need to hit all 3 in the gym all the time. I am very intentional in the workout program that I have programmed for myself to make sure that I hit all 3 shoulder muscles with a couple different exercises. My favorite exercise for the front delt is an overhead shoulder press. It's a compound movement. It works lots of other muscles in the body. It's a good one. My favorite exercise for the lateral delts, which are really the key to that really round cap shoulder look, is the classic lateral raise. You can either do these with dumbbells or a cable, although I do like them better with a cable because the tension is maintained through more of the movement with a cable. For overhead shoulder presses, I'm currently doing 40 to 45 pounds, 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps, depending on the day, how strong I'm feeling, how I'm progressively overloading it. That's where I'm currently at. But I worked my way up there. Now, working your way up in weight on lat raises, that's a different story. They are notoriously hard to progress in weight. I only use 10 pounds for mine, 12 and a half on a good day. But you can grow pretty nice shoulders with 10 pounds. As long as it's challenging, truly challenging, it will force it to grow. I've focused on better form over the years, and it's done something. My favorite exercise for the rear delt is a rear delt cable pull or a fly. I think it hits that spot real good. You can also do a version of these with dumbbells. Personally, not my favorite. They don't feel right for me. Everyone's different, so there are lots of variations of how to hit all 3 heads of the shoulder. Feel free to experiment, but those are my 3 favorites. Also, never skip back day, because a lot of back day exercises will hit the rear delts as well. Face pulls, it's a good one. Rows, etc. Look at those rear delts on back day. Oh my god. Who would have thought? I would have never thought. Never thought that'd be me. It's pretty freaking cool. No. Hello. Hello. Thank you. Hello, I just noticed that my microphone died a long time ago. This video is destined to have terrible audio. I'm so sorry. But we're gonna move forward anyway. Like a final girl. I did the best I could to clean it up in post. I'm talking about Mikey from the future, even though I'm also the Mikey from the future. It's very confusing. Oh, and now I've resorted to just sitting very close to my desk microphone, which means my face is gonna be huge. Sorry. Where was I? Because growing my shoulders is my focus, I train them 2 to 3 times a week. Usually twice, sometimes 3 if I'm feeling real peppy. Some girls train glutes 3 days a week because they want a big butt. That's me, but with shoulders. I also train glutes 3 days a week because I don't have any, because I am destined to be a pancake ass forever. That'll be a different video if I ever get that. I'm working so hard. And I've touched on this a few times now, but progressive overload is something that you really want to keep in mind when trying to grow your shoulders, because you basically want to think about it like this. You want to piss off your muscles so that when you go to the gym, they're looking at the weights that you're lifting and they're like, this crazy final girl is not going to stop. She's just going to keep lifting heavier and heavier weights. And the only thing we can do in response to that to keep up with her is for us to grow. It's basically how it works. In a nutshell, that's what progressive overload is. If you are not challenging your muscles, why would they need to grow? If they can handle the workload that you're putting them under and that stays the same over time, what incentive do they have to grow? None. Muscle is expensive. It requires a lot of energy to maintain muscle mass. It requires a lot of energy to grow muscle mass, which is why you're not going to accidentally get bulky. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's very true in a muscle sense. Never-ending immortal killer franchise. Maturing is realizing it never stops. And when you make peace with that, honestly, it does get easier because it's just one less thing to resist. So a quick little lesson, eating at maintenance means that you are putting in the same amount of energy calorically as you expend in a day through your daily movements, through the energy it requires your body to just function, even if you don't move a muscle. For all the extra energy you do moving muscles, walking, working out, anything like that, fidgeting, digesting your food, everything costs energy. And when you give your body as much energy as you expend in a day, that is your maintenance, and that is eating at maintenance. The general rule of thumb is that if you eat in a caloric surplus, meaning above your maintenance, even if it's by 100 calories, you can build muscle, because that extra energy that you give your body will help go to muscle growth if you are challenging your muscles and giving them the signal, you need to grow because I'm going to keep lifting heavier weights. Got it? It's a really simplified version of hypertrophy, but hopefully that makes sense. The general rule of thumb, in order to lose weight, you want to be in a caloric deficit, meaning you are feeding your body less energy than it takes to maintain in a day, because then it will start pulling from fat reserves. Generally speaking, again, very oversimplified, but I don't want to overcomplicate it, because I think that overcomplicating fitness stuff for the average person who's just looking to improve their health is a recipe for getting overwhelmed and quitting before you start, or not being able to sustain it. The whole point is to make this easy and sustainable and something that you can do for the long run. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and we're gonna get into it now. If you want a toned or lean look, which not everybody wants, but a lot of people want that, and I'm guessing if you clicked on this video, you might be somewhat interested in that. I think a lot of women misunderstand what the toned, lean look is. It is not endless hours of cardio, and it is not starving yourself. When someone looks toned, it's because you can see muscle definition, and you do not really grow muscle from doing any cardio. Cardio is really for heart health, endurance, a lot of benefits to cardio, but if you use it as the primary means of weight loss, it's not the best way to do it. You've probably heard the saying, you can't outrun a bad diet. You would do much better focusing your time on better nutrition and eliminating some ultra-processed foods little by little, as much as you can, without feeling like you're restricting yourself, than you would be to try to out-cardio what you're eating. The toned, lean look is a combination of muscle mass to shape your body and having a low enough body fat to reveal that muscle. If you're not growing muscle, you're just gonna get skinnier, but basically look the same that you look now, just like shrunken, which might be what you're going for, then do it, that's fine. But this is how a lot of women end up feeling frustrated even after they've lost weight, because they feel like they look skinny fat. That is when you have lost body fat, but you're still not looking toned because you don't have the muscle underneath of it to build that like scaffolding, that shape. Because again, they're afraid of lifting weights. If you only lift weights and your nutrition is shit, you'll build muscle underneath, but you might not see it if your body fat percent doesn't allow it to be revealed. That is still an improvement though, because again, having more muscle is a very good thing, no matter what. It is not all about aesthetics, but if we are talking strictly aesthetics and you want to look toned, it's gonna be doing the combination of both. The way to build the muscle is to weightlift. The way to reveal the muscle by a lower body fat percent is through nutrition. Mainly whole foods, avoiding ultra-processed foods, not eating takeout every meal. You can do this with a moderate approach. The 80-20 rule says that you really focus on it 80% of the time, and you don't worry about it as much 20% of the time. I talk a lot about how I've managed moderation in a way that works very well for me in my updated fitness video, so again, go check that out. I spend a lot of time on that, and my best weapon by far for growing shoulders or anything fitness health related is consistency in the long term. This is the bulk of what my updated fitness routine is about because we know what to do in many ways. We know how we could improve our health and our fitness. The biggest problem is that we'll do it for a short time and then we kind of give up on it. If you can figure out consistency over the long term, and that might be consistency 60% of the time, 70% of the time, but as long as it's a majority of the time, you will start moving in the right direction. And eventually it'll get easier to do 80% of the time or more if you want to do more, because honestly, the longer I've gone down my journey, the more I want to eat healthy a higher percent of the time because I just feel much better when I do. And I'm just tired of feeling like shit. I've spent enough years feeling like absolute shit. So the best thing I can do is not add to my own suffering if I don't have to. For me, that means making healthy choices as often as I can, wherever I can. And I have it down to a really good science. This is mainly about the shoulders and Sarah Connor, so I don't want to distract too much from that, but I have had a lot more people ask me about my fitness routine as of late because I've been posting more outfits lately on Instagram. Not everyone follows me for health and fitness related stuff. Obviously, that's not what I built my platform on. I am predominantly a horror channel, and some people don't like seeing fitness content at all. So my solution to giving the people that want more fitness related content more of that without bombarding the people that don't want to see fitness content is I have a subscription on Instagram now, where if you go to my profile and you click this here button, it'll allow you to subscribe for daily exclusive content where I basically just show what it takes to maintain or build my current physique. I'm currently in the phase where I'm trying to grow my glutes quite a bit more because, like I said, they've always been a challenge for me while maintaining my level of leanness for the most part. I think that's going to fluctuate a little as we get into it, but that's my current goal. I share things that I eat, how monotonous it is, how boring it is, the realities of it, the struggles, the wins, my workouts, how I work around the chronic conditions that I have, which I really just want to mention. I think that I've been maintaining this physique for so many years now that I think a lot of people are starting to think that I'm just lucky. And I'm definitely lucky that I can move my body to do a lot of things in a day to take care of my health. But it wasn't always like that. And I think it's easy to forget that I'm not a person with no problems. It was not straightforward for me. And something that I always try to remind people when I talk about fitness stuff, especially with my subscribers on Instagram, is that not being able to do things straightforward doesn't mean you can't do anything. And if you're consistent, you can do quite a lot over time, even with obstacles in the way. I got a long list of acronyms that I write down on a doctor's form. I work around hypermobility, HEDS. I have POTS symptoms that will flare. I definitely had to work around endo when my endo symptoms were really, really bad before I got on a progesterone-only pill. I have a heart condition that I actually have to work around when I lift weights. I can't lift as heavy as perhaps other people could because of it. So I found a way to push it to my limit and I can still grow muscle that way, but that took some finagling. I will never be a power lifter because of the things I have going on, but I have gotten to a place where I'm very happy with what I can do with the tools and resources and the body that I have. And I'm very, very thankful that even though my body does limit me in some ways, I can do so much with it. The fact that I can walk is such a privilege, and I'll never take that for granted. So I talk about all these things more in detail with my subscribers to remind you and encourage you that having obstacles in the way is not the end of your story. Like a final girl, you might get knocked down, you might get beat up, the cards might be stacked against you in so many ways, but you can persevere through it with the mindset that you are going to persevere through it. It sounds easier said than done, but what I'm trying to say is I live what I'm talking about. If you feel like there's no way this is possible for you, I promise you I felt like you. I absolutely felt like you a few years ago, and I never would have thought that I've gotten to the place that I'm at now. I didn't think it was possible. I thought my life was over. So I hope sharing my story inspires someone who thinks their current state, either mentally or physically, would make improvement basically impossible. Everyone's different, but I hope that you find a way to surprise yourself with what you can do. A final girl pushes herself with the intention of growth and knowing that every challenge makes her better, even when it's really hard, even when it's not fair. Other people won't have to deal with the life and the body and the limitations that you have. That doesn't mean you can't do anything with it. And like I've been saying, Sarah Connor was forged through her obstacles, and what doesn't kill you makes you a final girl. Don't forget that. And on a final girl note, I'm sure you want to see the results of the photo shoot, the premise of the whole thing. And I gotta say, I was pumped after the shoot. All things considered, for a very quick shoot, because we were battling, honestly, really unsafe heat and a setting sun, we got pretty freaking close. But seeing the side-by-sides in basically the same exact costume and almost the same exact lighting really made me realize how absolutely yoked Linda Hamilton was. Like, I always knew she was ripped, but damn, it's crazy. Even with my shoulders, which I'm very proud of, it was humbling. She went full beast mode for this role, and her dedication to her character as an actor is admirable and gave us capped shoulder inspo forever. Anyway, here are the final pictures from the shoot. My tooth. You're kidding me. How long has that been there? You're supposed to tell me. One shoulder pump for the road. They don't even look that big. Oh no, the dysmorphia starts. Look at that shoulder. Oh yeah, girl. All right, that's it. Go get your sexy cap shoulders. Bye.